detected on our radar a dark ship, meaning she hid all forms of investigation as far as 174 nautical miles off the coast of Nigeria. That's about 320 kilometers, heading westward towards Benin Republic. We dispatched NNS Aba to go and investigate the contact. We subsequently followed the investigation by dispatching NNS Sokoto to double up the search and interdiction. On arrival at the spot, we found MT Sweet Mary, fully laden with about, I would say, a little less than 2 million liters of product with the characteristics of crude oil, and she had no naval approval on board. Another point of interest is that this ship is reportedly, as stated by the crew, owned by a Ghanaian, and it's registered under a Ghanaian company, with one of the crew being Ghanaian. So with Vinalaris, we've done a good job. We've gotten people involved in the theft, and that includes the managerial level of the company that owns the ship. We just have one more person to pick up, and he has absconded. He's outside Nigeria, and we're waiting for him.
Well, our conversation this morning has to do with crude oil theft, and it's a conversation that has to be had following this particular story, allegations of complicity in our quest to curb crude oil theft. Operation Delta Sanity has been launched, and we would like to get to know what Operation Delta Sanity is all about, how much progress it's made, how are these people able to come in here and steal oil. It does seem like a very complicated situation, but one that definitely has some sort of explanation. And we need to hear from the Navy on how this is happening. How are these ships able to enter our waterways? Are they able to ferry oil away from pipelines onto ships? A lot of conversations, but helping us understand that this morning is Rear Admiral Mustapha Hassan, the flag officer commanding Western Naval Command of the Nigerian Navy. He's joining us via Zoom. It's good to have you on the program. Good morning.
Morning and morning viewers. Morning and morning viewers. Morning and morning viewers.
All right, so let's get down to it. Let's talk about this case in particular. A Ghanaian, 12 Nigerians. What's really going on here? How did this happen? And how, was it some kind of intel? What really happened with this particular arrest of people that the Navy say are trying or tried to steal our oil?
Okay, thank you very much. We particularly depended on our surveillance equipment and intelligence, and we noticed that these thieves these days go very far away southwards before turning west to the neighboring countries to drop their stolen cargo. So on this day, we noticed a contact at about 174 nautical miles south of Nigeria. That's about 320 kilometers. And we dispatched 2 ships to round up the person. Normally, they put up all forms of identification, which raises our suspicion. And this venture paid off, and we caught MT Sweet Mary with about 2 million liters of crude. Interestingly, the crew immediately confessed to have stolen the crude, and they pointed out that they had foreign backers. So we are doing our preliminary investigations now, and we will hand over to the prosecuting authorities immediately we conclude.
So how are they able to steal it? It's the details of it all that really concerns Nigerians. It's a good thing that they've been arrested. It's a great thing that they've also confessed. But how did the stealing happen?
Okay, the stealing mostly happens at abandoned wellheads. These wellheads, which do not contribute to the national daily production rate. They dot the whole territorial, our waters, they are scattered all over our waters. They are many and fast spread. The thieves usually take advantage of these scattered assets and go steal at night. That is the problem we're facing. There is a strong need to decommission these wellheads because they give incentives to thieves to always try and see what they can cut away.
So let me understand these. These are abandoned oil heads, you called them? And
yeah, wellhead.
So there's crude oil in them?
Yep, they are.
Why are they not manned?
Because they are far below the production capacity of the required by the companies. So they leave them and go to more productive fields. So they cannot be manned by the company and they are not habitable and have to be abandoned. Normally they are decommissioned and made, they are sealed off, but in most of our cases in Nigeria, they're just left open. So you just go there, open, and pick what you want to pick and shut.
I mean, oil is not on the floor, you know. You have to pardon us, but we need to really understand oil is in the ground, and these oil heads are in the ground. So how is it abandoned so much? If it's 2 million liters of crude in an abandoned site in Nigeria, is that something that the Nigerian people are supposed to understand, that there's 2 million liters of oil just abandoned somewhere and someone could come in the night and steal it? Is that the explanation we're getting here?
Very correct. It's even much more than that. The companies need to work on profitable oil heads. So as they explore, they take out the products, and when the pressure is no longer what they want, they leave and move on. But in normal climes, they are supposed to seal these things, environmental concerns, theft and all. So they're not supposed to seal before moving off, but we don't seal. I don't know why the IOCs do not seal these wellheads and they leave the problems for the government.
Well, since they're leaving it for the government, I think it's something the government should actually look into. These are our natural resources. It's something that we should protect. So the decommissioning and the environmental concerns were not strong enough for us to be able to say, okay, look, before we decommission, let's man this asset that someone could steal 2 million liters of crude oil from. But we'll get back to this shortly, but I want to be able to talk about Operation Delta Sanity. Why was it created and what has it been able to achieve so far?
Okay. The need to rejig and reinvigorate the Nigerian Navy anti-crude oil theft, anti-illegal bunkering, and anti-pipeline vandalism operations necessitated the launch of Operation Delta Sanity. Relatedly, Mr. President's Renewed Hope agenda and the government's Blue Economy Initiative further necessitated the need for the Nigerian Navy to scale up our operations. The operation was launched by the Chief of the Naval Staff, Vice Admiral I.E. Ogala, Admiralty Medal, and this time around, and unlike previous times, commanders were given the most freedom of action to carry out their operations. And this is without bureaucratic bottlenecks and recourse to taking permissions before using some critical assets like helicopters and sensitive surveillance equipment. So the CNS has also introduced night flying, which gives good intelligence. I will say this operation is a great success because going by the massive onslaught by the Navy, we have made a lot of seizures, destructions of illegal refining sites, and all. But that is not how I want to measure the gains of Operation Delta Sanity. I will rather want to rely on data from Operation Delta Safe gotten from the oil industry, which points that the 5 trunk lines that feed our offshore terminals, that is the Boni Pipeline, the Trans-Ramos, Trans-Escravos, Trans-Focados, and the Trans-Niger have been operating at between 90 and 98% since December 2022. That means we're almost at maximum capacity. Of course, we have other means of exports, which is like barging and ore. And of course, we've not had problems with barging. So we are doing very well in the fight against oil theft because we've left no stone unturned. All these other thefts you've been hearing being reported are from abandoned wellheads, which the IOCs and others should come up with a way of dealing with. The Operation Delta Sanity has very good prospects, but first we need to do a few things. These wellheads need to be decommissioned. They need to be sealed off totally. Also, the Navy needs to be given a chance at export loading terminals to have a bird's eye view of what is actually being loaded on ships. If you remember, we've always complained that we feel some ships are topped up more than they should carry sometimes. Empty heroic Edun comes to mind. You can recall that case. And I also remember that way back in 2022, Mr. President then, President Muhammadu Buhari, approved for the Navy to go on those export terminals to carry out fiscalization along with others. But up till this moment, and after training officers and men abroad, we're yet to be availed that chance. If we do that, we will surely have a better grip of our oil production. We will also have better prospects if these cases of oil theft are given speedy judgments. We've had cases of ships or cases that have lingered for 2 years, and so if they are tackled instantly and these thieves see that their assets are forfeited to the government frequently, it will surely discourage them from this act.
I mean, you have mentioned quite a number of important things that need to be addressed. You're absolutely correct. These abandoned oil wellheads need to be decommissioned, and of course the need for speedy judgment. These are very important. But one thing that you've not talked about at all is the prevention. Is there anything that Delta Sanity does to prevent oil theft in the first place?
Yeah, we prevent by showing presence, by cordoning off, by presence is basically what we do. We're mostly around these oil fields, but remember I told you they are so numerous and dotted all around the place. So
too numerous again, for all of you to handle?
Oil fields are contributing.
When you say too numerous for the Nigerian Navy to handle?
The Nigerian Navy has an area of responsibility of 84,000 square nautical miles, which is much bigger than Nigeria space-wise. So it's an open field that is hard to monitor continuously. For example, if you have a little boat and you're still on, we won't see you on our devices. So it has to be physical presence. So we will need many more ships and boats to be almost at everywhere at the same time. Not too much for us to handle, but we are always doing our best.
I mean, I want to get back to how the stealing happened in the first place, because it's always shocking to me when we see visuals from the Niger Delta about people who are stealing Nigeria's crude oil. One of the things that stood out for me is that the oil is not on the ground. You don't use a bucket to scoop it up. These people have to reconstruct pipelines, so to speak. And how all of that is able to happen for national assets. We have an agency that is actually tasked with ensuring the protection of national assets. So the idea that these construction, because it's an elaborate construction, if anyone has ever seen that, they'll be able to tell you, it's an elaborate construction. How is that able to happen properly and then move the oil onto a ship that came into our waterways? How is that able to happen? What is going on here?
Okay, when you go to an abandoned wellhead, all you need to do is connect your pipe to the well, from the ship to the wellhead, and just turn on the tap. They all have pressure, so it comes out naturally from the underground pressure. You don't need to connect pipes or do engineering work to get that out. All you need to do is connect. I will draw your mind back to empty.
You have to connect. Sorry to cut you. Sorry to cut you, Rear Admiral. But you have to connect a pipe, not so.
Yes.
And then that pipe has to be connected to a ship.
Yes.
So that's a construction. That's a whole. That doesn't take a few seconds. That takes a while.
No, you just go to the pipe, to the platform, tie up your ship, connect your pipe. Within an hour, you're connected. You remember MT Vinara's one off the coast of Ondo State? All they did was to go by they switched off, went dark, posted, and went by the platform and quickly tied up and connected 2 hoses for faster operation, but were able to intercept them after they had loaded about 1/3 of their cargo.
So what happens after the arrest? 13 people, according to your report, have been arrested, a Ghanaian and 12 Nigerians. And then, of course, the ship has, of course, been confiscated by the Nigerian Navy. So what happens now?
These days, we just don't want to hand over and forget the matter. We, at the Navy level, try to get to the big wigs behind the theft. And I must commend the DSS Lagos State for this. They're very effective and they've helped us a lot. We get everybody, the big wigs, the lower level perpetrators, tie up the case, then hand over to the EFCC for prosecution.
Okay.
So we're doing something different this time around.
You did talk about foreign backers. The men who you arrested said they had foreign backers. Could you give us some more details on that?
Well, after the arrest, the captain alleged that the vessel was owned by a Ghanaian. He called the name, and he also called the name of the company involved. This oil that is stolen from Nigeria is usually taken out and refined somewhere. So this shows the involvement of foreigners in Nigeria's oil theft. So there's a need for the international community to start rejecting stolen crude, just like blood diamonds. It's very easy to know crude that is not gotten from legal sites. So we should push for stolen crude not to be accepted by foreign actors, state actors this time.
I want to get Ayo to join this conversation. I've actually been mouthing since for Ayo to join in, but I'm sure he would have more questions in that level. On that level, when you do catch these foreign backers, has this ever happened? Have you ever been able to catch the foreign backers and actually, bring them to justice or try them? Has this ever happened?
I'm not aware of it ever happening, and it's outside my purview. We normally hand over to the prosecuting agencies to finish their job. So I'm not aware of any foreign actors so far.
All right, Ayo.
So there's a need after them.
I'm sure you have a few things to ask Rear Admiral here.
Well, yeah, Kayla, thank you very much. Well, let me begin, Rear Admiral, by thanking you and your team for this. That you have done, and let me also believe that there's some kind of reward and motivation for the men, for your foot soldiers who got this job done. Let me begin with that.
It's by the CNS at the launch of Operation Delta Sanity in Ori Delta State, and the briefing he gave us, he made a lot of morale-raising talks that has poured men into action. Normally, the Navy sails around. We coast generally because the thieves litter our coast, and we've been catching them there. But now you see Navy ships going to the limits of the EEZ with high spirit, high morale. So the CNS also has been a welfareist, which has generally raised the spirit of the officers and men in the Navy. So I think that is also playing a good role in our fight against crude oil theft. He's a reward and punishment person.
Well, that is good to hear, and we want that to continue. But you know, one of the things that will concern me and perhaps anyone else is that 2 million liters of crude poured into a vessel that can take up to 2 million liters, perhaps even more. It's not something that is done within 5 minutes. This is just about, I don't know, maybe about 20 or 30 liters, or maybe less. And 2 million liters is quite a lot. It'll take me a little while to pour some water into this cup. How long does it take, for instance, for anyone to fill a tank with 2 million liters of crude?
Depending on your pipe size, your pump size, and all, you could do it in 2 hours.
Whoa. So it is possible that it was something that was done very, very quickly, and these guys could get out so quickly. But you know, one of the things that also gives me a concern, my apologies, that also gives me a concern is that this definitely happened in a particular community. Isn't that the case?
No, that's not the case. Usually offshore in the waters, open space in the waters at night.
All right. Now, you also said that this particular oil well is one of those that had been abandoned for a while. How many of such can you guess exist in our country today?
Guesswork, I'll put it guesswork. Remember, I'm not an expert. I don't work in that field. I'll put it at 1,000. Guesswork. I'm not an expert. Not my question. 1,000.
So about 1,000 abandoned wellheads in the country, all connected to Nigeria's wealth. That's one way to put it, right?
Again, I say guesswork. I'm not the expert.
I understand. Okay. So directly, we would put this job of auditing, if we are to use that term, the job of auditing the wellheads in the country all over. We'll put it under the the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. I'm assuming that is the case.
I'm not an expert. I don't know.
Okay. Because it concerns crude oil, it is safe to say that will probably be something for the Ministry of Petroleum to do. I'm asking these questions because I believe that the Navy will not be working alone. You have alluded some responsibility to the DSS, for instance. So I'm assuming that you're working with the DSS, working with other security agencies. You're also working with some institutions of government that are directly responsible for these particular aspects of our lives. We are talking about crude oil theft. The NNPC has come out to speak to it. The fact that there has been quite a number of them that have been terminated over time. Putting that burden squarely under the purview of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Is that a consideration that you think might also help your job in curbing oil theft in the country?
Anything done to stop the stealing is a consideration for me. I won't go into details because above my pay grade.
Okay, that is understandable as well. But speak to the efforts to curb crude oil theft in the country. How well would you say we have done or we are doing in that regard? What you have done and what you and your men have done in this particular case is commendable. I also read that there's a particular, independent private organization that has praised the Navy to high heavens for that. But what are the inhibitions in the way of curbing crude oil theft in the country?
Inhibitions, I'll still put it at inadequate platforms. We have platforms where 84,000 square nautical miles. is very large. So we can't say we have enough ships. There will never be enough. And I think no Navy has enough ships, but we still can do more to saturate our waters with these assets, because the more we spend on procuring and maintaining assets, the more we save for the country. So there's a need to get more assets towards fighting crude oil theft. But the best way so far is to shut down these wellheads, take away the incentives for stealing, and also allow the Navy and probably other agencies be at the export terminals to see what really goes on there.
So now, when you say, and you've said that quite a number of times on this program this morning, that the oil wells should be shut down, who should be doing that?
I think from the little I've gathered, it's the responsibility of the IOCs. You use, you finish, you shut down.
Now, in the event
that the IOCs, and
okay,
it's
in
up
the
to the
event
regulatory agencies to force them to do their job.
Okay, all right. So let's just say that the IOCs, under the supervision of the regulatory agencies, that's a given, and I'm sure that they're listening to you and they'll take their own bit of it. Now, one of the other concerns, and I know you're going to say it's above your pay grade or it's outside of your purview, is what they call consequences. This is not the first time we're hearing that oil thieves have been arrested. We've heard from some private organization, and you may also want to speak to that later, the collaboration that may or may not exist between the Navy and these private organizations that were contracted to monitor the waterways as well. The consequences of doing these things, people don't get to hear anymore that, okay, this fellow has been taken to court, or this person has been remanded in prison or sentenced to jail because of this and because of that. Is there any way that the Navy can, even though remotely, monitor these consequences so that at least it shows that the effort the Navy is making to curb these oil thieves or oil theft in the country is actually bearing seed?
Okay, remember I told you earlier that the Chief of the Naval Staff has directed that we see these matters through, and we are on that. We're no longer holding just the crew and handing them over. We're doing our best to get the whole team and pass to the prosecuting agencies, and we getting feedbacks and making all efforts to pass this feedback to the general public. So I expect that from now on, consequences will be made public, which will also serve as a form of deterrence to perpetrators.
You know, one of the questions the average Nigerian will want to ask you right now is, okay, that's easy to say now until we meet some big gun or some kingpin that is quote-unquote untouchable. Should you have that kind of inhibition, if I might put it that way, what would be the action or reaction of the Navy to that?
That inhibition will not be on my part. Get a name, if it's Ayomakinde, pen it up, put it in the list of suspects and forward to the prosecuting agency. So the inhibition might now lie with the prosecuting agency. Because my job is simple: get a name, get the names of all those involved, and pass it to the prosecuting agency. So it's not a problem for me. Okay. And I have that mandate already from the Chief of the Naval Staff.
Well, for the record, Ayomakinde will not be on that list. Just saying. And I know you just have an example. But, you know, speak to that collaboration. Are you working with any private, organizations? We heard of a Tantita security outfit in South at some point, working with the federal government on some kind of contract. And they were also partly able to help arrest some of these oil thieves, one of which was, sort of an action of the military that got a backlash from people. Are you working with any private or some other agencies to get this job done?
Okay, the fight against oil theft is a whole-of-nation approach, and we are surely working with lots of agencies towards achieving this mandate. We are currently working seamlessly with these agencies. You mentioned Tantita, they are domiciled mainly with Operation Delta Safe, and the rough edges have been smoothened, and you see lately there's been no quarrel or anything. So we're working very fine with all of them. Intelligence is being shared, making good progress in the fight against crude oil theft. And again, this is testified to by what I told you about the 5 main trunk lines that supply the export terminals, operating at 90 to 98% since December. So we're making very good progress in the fight against crude oil theft.
You mentioned Operation Delta Safe now, and the other one that saw to this particular action we're discussing now. How many of such operations are ongoing at this moment?
It depends. Are you talking about operations against crude oil theft and all, or general operations in the country?
No, particularly crude oil theft.
Majorly, we have Operation Delta Safe, Operation Delta Sanity, Operation Awasi, and a few others.
Okay. All right. You have talked about the need for some kind of funding, some kind of more facilities. Is there anything you think that maybe officials in the National Assembly can do to facilitate and fast track, if possible, some of the challenges so that we can actually bring this oil thieving, activities to a foreseeable close within the shortest possible time?
Okay, the political masters have been seeing the progress made by the Nigerian Navy, and I am categorical in saying that they've been very instrumental in raising our funding over time. So, yes, we still need more to be able to cover more spaces, but they are doing very well. And I'm sure they are watching this program and will continue to strive to push the Navy forward.
I know it's been a very grueling morning session with you, Rear Admiral Mustapha Hassan, but it's a situation that we do need a lot of clarification on, and of course, like you heard Ayo say, congratulations really, and thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, the Nigerian Navy is speaking up, which is one of the aspects of the situation that has really got me looking at the Navy. Why are you speaking up right now? What's really going on? When military agencies volunteer information, just as a traumatized Nigerian, I start to wonder what's really happening here. Is there a reason? I think it's important really for us to understand that these abandoned oil wellheads have been lying there and people are able to steal from them and whatnot. So very critical. I want to talk a bit, following up on what Ayo talked about there with collaborations. You mentioned the blue economy earlier. What kind of collaborations is the Nigerian Navy doing with the concept of blue economy right now?
Regarding the concept of blue economy, we are there to ensure security, safety, and security towards making the landscape usable by the people that will enhance the Nigerian economy through the maritime environment. We're working with the fisheries to make sure they have better protection and less disturbance in their operations. We work with NIMASA to make the waterways safe. We're generally trying to improve the security, making the maritime environment friendly enough for investors in the blue economic space.
And that is a very, very important point there. We don't have much time. We do have to move on to business. But before we let you go, Let's talk a bit about, these illegal refineries, because Delta Sanity has also been arresting people who run and shutting down illegal refineries across the country. And that is a whole new conversation, because many people are saying, instead of shutting it down, why don't you license them? Why don't you monitor them? Let's see if we can shore up our, crude oil, turning it into something that we can use as a people, as opposed to all of this importation that is going on. What do you make of that? And, where are we with the shutting down of these illegal refineries?
I don't see a way forward there if you say those operating illegal refineries should be given the licenses to start refining products for Nigeria. First of all, the quality of the products they churn out is very poor and it destroys engines. But most importantly, are they buying these products? Remember, they mess up the environment. Then now, are they getting these products for free? No matter how you get a small amount of the population and give legitimate businesses in the cooking sector, a number of criminals will still exist and will continue to cook this crude.
Okay, well, we do have to wrap it up there, Rear Admiral Mustapha Hassan. But, I know this is a conversation that we do have to have again, especially when it comes to these illegal refineries. I want to thank you very much for being with us on Sunrise Daily this morning. Good luck with all the work you have ahead of you. And thank you for your service to the country.
Right. Thank you very much.